He's got lots of business interests. They go into blind trust. That's the money taken care of. But yeah, there will be relationships in the past which correctly should be looked at. I mean, he may put himself up for interview, and they may come up. I think and they should do.
The white nationalist comment. I mean,
I know.
It's not very serious.
I think the left didn't really understand Trump and his value to the UK. His mother's, of course, is Scottish. He loves Britain. He loves the Queen, the late Queen, before she died. I mean, he loves Britain, and I think they allowed the noise around him to get in the way of, frankly, the good he could do to this country, I think.
So there were a few other names that were up to this job. I mean, it seemed that David Miliband was knocked out of the running relatively...
If Kamala Harris had won, I think that was the option.
Right.
The idea had been...
David Miliband running the refugee agency in New York, perhaps it's not the most aligned to Donald Trump that you can possibly imagine, but are we having this conversation thinking who would be best for Trump, rather than realising that it's actually Keir Starmer who's making the appointment? He's not going to pick someone who's completely against Keir Starmer's worldview. He wants to represent his...
And Mandelson's close to Morgan McSweeney, who I think is the main...
and he's the chief of staff to...
Correct. No one needs to have heard of him, but he's the brains behind Starmer. And McSweeney, I think, is the one who's sharpened the operation up recently. The group, I'm not sure what you think about the event we went to on Wednesday night at number 10. I felt they all looked a bit depressed and down, but I think they come to grips with governing, not campaigning. I think they haven't really gone to that moment of, well, we're in charge now. Everything takes ages. You have to persuade a lot more than just campaign and shout.
I spent most of that evening trying to cheer some of the press team up.
Yeah, I know.
This is an appalling appointment. Come on. Is this man going to understand Donald Trump after he's just slagged him off?
Well,
He also, back in the day, many a scandal himself, Peter Mandelson, had to resign twice. I mean, not great.
Emily, I would say of the options open to this government, he's the best.
Better than Ed Miliband.
He's better than the other ones I've looked at. Nigel Farage couldn't do it. He's MP for Clacton. He really couldn't do it. Had he not become MP for Clacton, I think the noise behind him becoming the ambassador would be a lot. Having said all that, we haven't heard yet what the Donald thinks. And we're watching, obviously, X, Truth Social, and what does the Trump whisperer, Nigel Farage, he's reserving judgment. Yeah. It could be ominous. It could be ominous.
It's really interesting that Nigel Farage is reserving judgment there, because Donald Trump is someone who himself is a great forgiver, perhaps, of people who say nasty things. And I
David Lammy says he is, after that dinner in Trump Tower.
Is it interesting? Look at how Donald Trump behaves with Marco Rubio, his new Secretary of State, who they used to bust each other up, but then they sort of smooth it all over. He's one for flattery, and I suppose Peter Mandelson is one of the most chameleon-like figures in our politics of the last 30 years.
He's compelling. I've interviewed him 2 or 3 times for various podcasts. He's compelling, he is interesting, he's a total Labour to his core, but he's also political, and the things he was saying recently about Labour needs to embrace Farage, not push him away. Now, that can be said to the Tories too, because no one likes Farage, and Farage makes a lot of noise out of that, and he takes on the establishment. But embracing Farage, whisper it quietly, he wants to be embraced by the establishment. He loves his country, he wants to do it, but on his own terms. And I think ego gets in the way.
Isn't his magic that everyone in Westminster hates him, and everyone hates Westminster in the country?
Yeah.
Yes.
And therefore there's that marriage of convenience.
Correct.
Well, quite, yeah.
I should, before we go, I must say we are waiting for peerages.
Yes.
They are expected today. Thangam Debonair for Labour, Kevin Brennan, Sue Gray, remember her, she'll get one probably, Simon Case, the outgoing Cabinet Secretary, Trees Coffey, formerly a Deputy PM to Liz Truss, Rachel McLean, it was around 30 or so Labour peers.
And when are we expecting these to be announced?
Well, now, I don't know. We're expecting maybe early afternoon. We were expecting yesterday. It's an appointment which is tied up with a palace and number 10 and all sorts of cabinet office.
Lots of moving parts.
A lot of moving parts.
Okay.
And,
Will you come and tell us when they do drop?
Of course.
Yes,
Run in.
Straight away, I'll run in,
on Merry
hot
Christmas
foot.
Britain, exclusively, quicker than any other channel. That's what we'll be.
Always here.
Christopher Hope, thank you so much. This is Merry Christmas Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show.
It is one of the greatest mysteries in the history of aviation on the brink of being solved. This coming as the Malaysian government announces it will renew the search for flight MH370 that disappeared more than a decade ago.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
So maybe people are opting for the more traditional ways of meeting people. Meeting organically.
It's the only way to actually... Well, I know some people have
it's worked very well for some people. I mean, I personally think that doing things more organically is probably going to be better, or it's more to my taste. But it has worked well for lots of people.
So I absolutely agree. There's a very interesting young woman, she's about 22, who writes on this and has a podcast called Freya India. And she talks about this dating industry, and she said all she ever wanted to do as a teenager was go down the pub and meet a man and fall in love. And the dating apps just don't do that. And she said they've become so, you know, it's just literally people looking for sex. You know, we need to get back to traditional ways of meeting face to face, but we also need to stop toxifying it. You know, a man flirting with a woman is not toxic. Men and women have done this for years. Obviously, you know, we need to know about boundaries, but we also need to allow men and women to do what comes naturally.
I think it's also about spontaneity in society. It's much harder to, you know, just randomly go out in an evening in London and not know what you're doing and have a good time than it was, I think, you know, 15 years ago or so. Yeah, and if you don't have spontaneity in your life in general terms, then that spontaneous meeting with someone is less likely to happen.
I think it's also where you are, because I was just thinking, as you said, that London, going out to try and meet someone in London is one thing. If you live in a small town and you go down your local pub, there's probably, you're more likely to meet someone that you get to know over a period of time.
But this is also why we need to support our pubs and our hospitality areas, because they are important social integrators. They really are.
Yeah. GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Merry Christmas, Britain. It's 25 minutes past 12. Now, is one of the greatest mysteries in the history of aviation on the brink of being solved?
Well, the Malaysian government has announced it will renew the search for Malaysia Airlines flight MH370. It, of course, disappeared without a trace a decade ago.
Yes, the plane was carrying 239 people from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing, and previous attempts to locate the plane have all failed, leaving the families of those on board without any kind of closure.
But what is going on here and why the change? Delighted to be joined in the studio by travel and aviation expert Sally Gethin. Sally, thanks so much for being with us here. I thought this search had run cold, had sort of run its course. There are all sorts of theories online about it. Why this change now?
So it does run hot and cold, but there's a company, a US robotics company called Ocean Infinity that has some new technology that they reckon can pinpoint the exact location. Now, this firm did carry out a search, which, you know, they did not find the wreckage at that time. That was in 2018, but they did find some promising signs, and that's informed the new search now. And the Malaysian government is doing a deal with this company. It's on a no find, no fee basis, so there's no public money going into it, and also teaming with China as well, because there were a lot of Chinese passengers on board.
Remind us of what happened on that day over 10 years ago.
It really is a shocking incident, and actually I'm quite surprised that more hasn't been done, that the search went cold, like you said. So 10 years ago, this flight, a B777, a Malaysia Airlines flight, MH370 is its call sign, took off from Kuala Lumpur and then went on its own trajectory and literally went missing. It was heading to Beijing. And the really disturbing aspect is that all signs point to the avionics being interfered with on board. So this has given rise to the theory that perhaps the pilot was behind it. Was it a murder-suicide? You know, why would the transponder was turned off? It had to be somebody who knew what they were doing on board the aircraft. And those families are absolutely devastated because they just don't have answers.
Yeah, that must be the toughest thing of all. I mean, at least having closure is something for those families. But looking at this peculiar flight trajectory, it takes off from Kuala Lumpur, starts heading towards Beijing, and then it appears to do a hairpin turn and head down to the Indian Ocean, completely the opposite way that it was travelling.
Yes, and I think, you know, until we get answers, really, how can we say air travel is completely safe? I mean, obviously there are risk factors whenever you fly, but because we don't know, were human factors involved? And like you say, it's such a bizarre course to take. And this has given rise to all sorts of theories, ranging from alien abduction to disappearing in a wormhole. Videos surfaced, you know, unattributable about it being circled by strange objects and all kinds of strange theories. So, you know, we need to really lead on this with the science that we've got at the moment.
I mean, it's almost hard to believe that in 10 years this plane just has not been able to be found. It's like it just, you know, escaped to another planet.
Well, certain pieces of wreckage have been found, about 3 pieces of wreckage. So there is evidence, obviously, that it did come down. But, you know, then you have to look at ocean flows and tidal patterns and so forth to see where those bits of wreckage came from. You know, it wouldn't be just, you know, it drops perpendicular and that's the spot.
No, it's not like a shipwreck, because planes are pretty flimsy things, really. Thin metal to make them light to fly. But, of course, all planes carry a black box. Is there any industry expectation that that black box, that recording of what happened on that flight could be salvageable from the bottom of the ocean?
So the voice and data recorder kit that you're talking about, that would be the holy grail. That would be what, you know, in an ideal world we would find. And, you know, especially if the pilot was actually communicating in some way through the avionics on the flight deck. But even then, I'm not sure we would really have all the answers, because all those souls went down and there's no survivors, and it really depends on what comes of this.
Very, very
perplexing, to say the least.
And such a mystery as well. As you say, everyone has their own theory about this. People blame some sort of military interference,
some are coming in now.
Mission. We've got some live theories on the...
whether it's the Chinese who shot it down over here. I mean, all sorts is coming through.
Yeah, deep state, lots of theories around, you know, were other governments involved? It's endless, actually. Talking about wormholes, you could really disappear down a wormhole just following all the different theories that are out there.
Well, fingers crossed that this renewed search will actually come up good.
And it seems that the company that is doing this search, this US tech company that's doing a no-find, no-fee basis, they seem fairly confident, given that proposal, that they will actually find this plane.
Well, it's a win-win for them because they put their technology to the test. They obviously get a lot of coverage out of it, but also they give hope to finding these answers. And yeah, so I don't. It's going to be a specific search time frame in the first quarter of next year. So there's a finite point where it has to be, you know, it has to be complete.
Well, we'll look forward to having you back when this search is completed, or hopefully before it's... Well, I mean, obviously...
Hopefully some good news.
Hopefully it will complete with some answers, and we'll have some more concrete theories on which to pontificate. But
rather
until
than
then...
the conspiracies.
Yes. Sally Gethin, thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you very much. Well, this is Merry Christmas Britain on GB News. We've got lots more coming up on today's show. Yes, as the BBC decides not to play a Christmas song that happens to criticise Sir Keir Starmer, we've actually decided to play it to them live outside the BBC Broadcasting House. You won't want to miss this after the headlines.
Emily, thank you and good afternoon. The top stories. 2 men have been charged with assaults on police officers following an incident at Manchester Airport in July. 20-year-old Mohammed Amaz is charged with 2 offences of causing actual bodily harm, 1 charge of assaulting an emergency worker and 1 charge of common assault. And 25-year-old Mohammed Ahmad is charged with causing actual bodily harm. They'll both appear in court on the 16th of January. The Crown Prosecution Service said no police officers would be charged in relation to the incident. The Independent Office for Police Conduct has said its investigation into the use of force by police on 6 people was nearing its completion. Elsewhere, Lord Mandelson is expected to be named as the UK's next ambassador to the US. Lord Mandelson, who served in the cabinets of Sir Tony Blair and Gordon Brown, is poised to be the UK's next top diplomat in Washington in a political appointment as Donald Trump returns to the White House. Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer believes the Labour veteran has the trade expertise and networking abilities to bring the UK and America closer together. Dame Karen Pierce, the current ambassador, will remain in the post until Trump is inaugurated on the 20th of January. The Met Office is urging people to prepare for disruptive weather this weekend as the Christmas holidays begin. Yellow warnings for wind have been issued and parts of the UK could be hit by gusts of up to 85 miles per hour. Millions of drivers start their holiday journeys from today, with motor agencies warning of a pre-Christmas panic on the roads and record levels of traffic. Data from the RAC estimates 29.3 million journeys to be made by motorists in the run-up to Christmas Day. About half of those are set to be made over this weekend. After around 5.7 million journeys on Wednesday and Thursday, the RAC said today will be Frantic Friday on the roads, with an expected 3 million trips. In a bid to help make things smoother, National Highways said the agency will remove roadworks on 95% of the roads they manage. And the Prime Minister says council should get on with the job of fixing pothole-plagued roads. Sir Keir Starmer says damaged roads can risk lives and cost hundreds, if not thousands of pounds for car repairs. He made those comments as the Department for Transport announced how much each local authority in England will receive to maintain roads in the next financial year. The Treasury announced in the budget in October that total local road maintenance funding in 2025 and 2026 will be nearly £1.6 billion, representing a £500 million uplift compared with the previous 12 months. The increase is estimated to be enough to fix around 7 million potholes. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Tatiana Sanchez. More from me in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hi there, welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. If you've got travel plans over the next few days, it's worth staying in touch with the weather forecast because it is turning unsettled. Rain moving east today, turning increasingly blustery and increasingly mild as westerlies move in across the country. So for today, a cold front is sinking southeastwards. That's bringing a spell of persistent rain for northern and western England, as well as Wales. Some heavy bursts with that rain and gusty winds. Drier to the east of that, although increasingly cloudy with a few spots of rain by the end of the afternoon in East Anglia and the southeast. Showers replacing the rain for Scotland and Northern Ireland as we end the afternoon, and feeling fresher here, but milder to the south, 10 to 12 Celsius. A damp evening then as we go through Friday, and it's going to be particularly damp across the Midlands and southern England. But for Scotland and Northern Ireland, it's a case of clear spells and showers, with the wind tending to ease. So actually conditions improving for the north and west of the country during the evening rush, but it's damp across East Anglia and the southeast at 6 p.m. with some heavy bursts of rain along with blustery breeze. The rain does clear, and then a brief spell of fine weather overnight with some clear spells and lighter winds. However, it doesn't last long. Scotland, Northern Ireland, northern and western England, as well as Wales, turn increasingly unsettled once again by dawn on Saturday. As that rain and wind move in, it's going to be a mild start to the weekend, but an unsettled start. Initially, a band of rain crosses the country, a lot of cloud cover associated with that. Then, brighter skies, but also blustery showers replace it for the north and west, and it's going to turn increasingly windy. The strongest winds will be in the north, 50 to 60 miles an hour, especially the northwest of Scotland, with the risk of 75 mile per hour wind gusts.
The latest GB News travel. Northbound on the M1, slow traffic to an earlier obstruction on the road after junction 9 for Redbourne, delays at junction 8 for Hemel Hempstead. Clockwise on the M25, 2 lanes are now blocked and there is slow traffic due to a multi-vehicle accident just after junction 2 for the Darenth interchange. Clockwise on the M25, traffic has returned to normal though, an earlier broken down van cleared between Waltham Abbey at 26 to 27 for the M11 interchange. It's slow for the westbound side of the M4. The exit slip road is partially blocked at Bristol 19 due to an obstruction on the road, and the southbound side of the M5, 2 lanes are closed. There's queue in traffic to a lorry fire. It's from Exeter at junction 30 through to the Oakhampton turnoff at junction 31. And that's your latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Merry Christmas, Britain. It's 38 minutes past midday. Now, the anti-government parody protest song, Freezing This Christmas, has hit #1 in the official singles downloads chart.
It's against Keir Starmer, isn't it?
Yes, it's pointedly against Keir Starmer. Let's give you a reminder of just how.
It'll be freezing this Christmas while Keir Starmer's warm.
It'll be freezing this Christmas. Anyway, for some reason, its rise to the top of the download charts isn't being celebrated by the BBC. They continue to refuse to play it.
Well, if they won't play it to you, we've got our own ideas about this. Martin Daubney is down there at the BBC headquarters. Martin, you're looking very festive yourself. I hope you're warm. What have we got with you?
Well, I'm here today, Emily and Tom, because the Bar Humbug Broadcasting Corporation are refusing to play this song if it gets to #1. It currently is top of the download charts. As you said, it's top of the iTunes charts. I spoke to creator Chris Middleton this morning. By the way, he's coming on my show today at 5:40 p.m. He's got everything crossed that it will be #1. They've raised a staggering £34,000 in donations on their Just Giving page. Every penny of that is going to pensioners this winter. The entire thing is meant to be a protest song, but also it's good-spirited. This lot have completely lost their sense of humour. Do you remember in 1977 they refused to play God Save the Queen by the Sex Pistols when that got to #1? Too spicy. They refused to play Relax by Frankie Goes to Hollywood because that was too spicy. They're doing it again, and guess what? The Streisand effect. If you ban something, guess what? People want it more and more and more. And we've brought a speaker along to make sure that these mealy-mouthed Christmas killjoys are going to hear this song. Should we give them a blast now? Let's
Absolutely.
I've got no place to go. It'll be freezing this Christmas without you at home.
If they don't want to enjoy the party, we're going to bring the party to them. And the people walking past here are loving it. They're shaking our hand. They're saying, well done, GB News. At least you've got a sense of humour. At least you're doing your bit for the pensioners of Britain. We're having a great time. Yeah, right? We're having a great time here.
Martin, you're getting live reaction there. That's amazing.
It's absolutely superb. There's BBC staff on the way in shaking our hands. They might get a disciplinary. They might get CCTV. The entire company has totally lost its sense of humour. Of course, there's an anti-government message you could say, but ask me this, riddle me this at Christmas. Do you reckon, Tom and Emily, if there was an anti-Boris Johnson song a couple of years ago, do you reckon they'd censor that? Of course they wouldn't. It's because they back the Labour government. We all know BBC bias, and we are making sure that this lot get a good dose. Crank it up again.
Wow. Martin, incredible. This is TV gold. Did I detect in your dance move there a bit of inspiration from the new president of the United States? A bit of the sort of angular, fist-held, you know, sort of jiggling backwards and forwards. Is this the new dance craze?
Yeah, the sort of dad dance. I'm good at dad dancing, and I'm sober. It's before lunch. You wait until later on. But like I say, 5:40 today is when the official Christmas #1 is announced. Chris Middleton, the creator of Freezing This Christmas by Sir Stormer and the Granny Harmers, will be on my show, and you can still make a difference. Download it. He tells me you go to Spotify, you go to Apple iTunes, you go to Amazon, anywhere you normally download and buy 79 pence a pop. Every penny goes to keeping pensioners warm this Christmas.
Fantastic.
No profit will be kept. It's a charity single. You can make a difference. All eyes on 5:30 today. There's still time to get stuck in.
OK, yank up the volume one last time for us, Martin. Yank it up.
Yeah, we've got to crank it up.
Didn't crank it up,
Merry Christmas,
brilliant.
BBC.
Oh, we don't deserve Martin. We don't deserve
You don't get that on other channels, do you?
No, you don't get that on other channels. Oh, that is brilliant. Martin, you know what? He's gone above and beyond this afternoon, so you'll have to tune into his show at 5:45 to speak to the maker of that song. It's doing well. It's doing well. It's #1 in the downloads charts. It needs to get into the top 40 of the main charts, but it could get there. I think it's on 60. It was on 60 yesterday, so I think it needs to go up a little bit more.
Exactly, because being #1 on the downloads charts is different from the overall charts because so many people now stream their music. So
you Grinch.
I don't want to get people's hopes up too much. I can't see it happening, but maybe there'll be a late surge.
Well, put some money in your pocket. Take some money out of your pocket, and you know, download it. Why not? Bit of fun. Anyway, if you're in search of some winter sun this winter, here's the forecast for some of the top European holiday destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hi there. If you're heading off looking for the sun ahead of Christmas, it's largely fine in Spain, but unsettled in Greece, whilst the winds feature highly on Saturday in the Canary Islands, with some showers moving through here. Some wet weather for Gibraltar, but for much of Spain, Balearics in particular, lighter winds and some sunshine. A breeze blowing through Italy and into Greece with some heavy rain here, and it stays showery in Greece throughout the weekend and into next week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Well, this is Merry Christmas Britain on GB News, and there's plenty more coming up on today's programme. The Second World War veteran Mervyn Kirsch is celebrating his 100th birthday today, and we're live at his surprise party. That's to come after this.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
British 10-year-old has beaten Stephen Hawking and Albert Einstein in an IQ test, would you believe? Genius Krish Arora got the maximum score of 162, which puts him in the top 1% globally.
Goodness me. Well, Krish's parents noticed his brilliant potential after learning he could read fluently by the age of 4.
Krish, how does it feel to be a child genius?
I feel really happy.
Oh, do you see it as a gift that you have?
Yeah.
Oh, that's just wonderful. Michelle, what do you make of your child being a genius? When did it become apparent to you that Krish had something different, something special?
I think at the age of 4, he was doing things that were way beyond and above his age.
Yeah.
He could read fluently, and he could spell correctly, and he was doing complex decimal divisions. So we thought that he's on to something. I think there's a spark out here.
Wow. And how are you reading books, Krish? Did you just pick them up from your mum and dad's bookshelf and just start reading to yourself?
We used to go to the library and we got books.
Such a good tip.
Such a good tip as parents.
Yeah.
Head to the library, take your kids to the library.
So, Nishal, can Krish just do it all? Is he just an all-rounder genius? Every subject, every talent, he can do it all?
Absolutely, and he helps out the family as well. He's been teaching me grade 1 piano, and he hopes, and I repeat, he hopes that I'm going to complete it in 12 months' time. And he also helps out Mum, because when Mum is teaching his sister, Mum sometimes says, Krish, go solve that problem and help your sister out. So yes, he can do it all.
Krish, you're a superstar.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. So trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there short and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's at the Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Merry Christmas, Britain. It's just coming up to 10 to 1, and the Second World War veteran Mervyn Kirsch is celebrating his 100th birthday today. To mark the surprise occasion, a party is being held in his honour by his friends and family at the Union Jack Club.
And none other than GB News national reporter Charlie Peters has gone along. He's there for us at this surprise party. Charlie, tell us, is he very happy indeed?
Yes, he is very happy. I think he was quite stunned to see so many people here. And welcome to the Union Jack Club in South London. This is where all members of the non-commissioned ranks of the armed forces, all three services, are automatically members. And there you have Mervyn Kirsch on his 100th birthday. Very happy indeed. And I think I can bring you a clip of the moment when he discovered that he'd entered a surprise birthday party.
Hope you're all ready.
Now, Private Mervyn Kirsch, he served on D-Day 3 days after the event, landing on Gold Beach. He was a member of the Royal Army Ordnance Corps, but since then he's been supported by so many charities. And one charity in particular I want to introduce you to, because I'm joined now by Paul Cook, who's the Vice Chair of the Taxi Charity for Military Veterans, who bring people over who served in Normandy back on the anniversaries. Paul, why are you here today, and how special is it for you to be here for the celebration of Mervyn?
Well, for myself, not only for myself, but for the charity, to honour Mervyn, who's 100 today, is very special. He's a very special member of our family. You know, he's been with us for many years now, and he really is like a shining character. The stories that he tells, the service that he done, it's just amazing, and I think it's an honour and a privilege to be here, Charlie.
As I can tell, only 13 people were driven across for the 80th anniversary of D-Day this year. Obviously, we're losing so many of our greatest generation, but how does it feel for you to be part of that team, driving over our military veterans on those incredible occasions?
Well, for me personally, I look at it as my service. You know, it's my way of giving back to this generation, the golden generation. Really, the truth is, Charlie, if it weren't for that generation, you wouldn't be sitting here, I wouldn't be sitting here. Saying thank you. It also reminds me of my grandfather and his service during the Second World War. So when I'm with these gentlemen and you know people like Dorothy, who was also the women, it's a bit of a connection for me. It's like I'm with my grandparents again, even though they're not. It does feel like it's to me.
This is a special room, isn't it? This room is bursting with history and with so many memories of that period. It must be an enormous privilege and an honour just to be around these people.
Oh, it is all the time. Every day that we have these people on this planet, it's very special. And when you get to meet these people, and we introduce them to people in France, and we introduce them to people in Holland, we always get an amazing response, an overwhelming response, especially from the Dutch. And it's reaffirming, it's life reaffirming, definitely.
Now we've heard from Mervyn, or Private Kirsch, to his old comrades, that he doesn't want any gifts for his birthday. He's not a materialistic man. What he wants is for donations to your charity, the tax charity for military veterans. Why does that charity mean so much to him, do you think?
Well, I think when we take him over to France and he sees the places, he's walking on steps that he probably walked on 80 years ago. He's walking on them roads and paths that he did 80 years ago. So it's the way he remembers his fallen comrades. It's also the way he remembers his service. It's the way, and he reflects on his faith. You know, he's very. He loves that he's Jewish, and he also loves his Jewish faith. And that's all connects to him when we're in France. And then obviously when he finished up in Holland, and Mervyn actually finished up in Bergen-Belsen, where the concentration camp, for a Jewish veteran, you know, that's very, for him, it means so much. Yeah, it's very moving. And for us, it's a privilege to take him there. I'm honoured when I've driven Mervyn over to Holland a few times, and also over to France. And when you're with him, you get it, Charlie. You know, you get it.
Paul Cook, thank you very much for your time. Thank you and good luck with your charity work. Thank you. And I just want to take you around here because we've got so many generations of veterans here. There's a man there enjoying a lovely pint of Guinness. And then around me, we've also got children, 4 generations as far as I can tell, all connected to Mervyn Kirsch, that great military veteran, celebrating his 100th birthday today at the Union Jack Club in central London.
What a wonderful occasion. Thank you so much, Charlie. Please do wish him a big happy birthday from us as well, Tom and Emily. Thank you, Charlie. We'll speak to you a little bit later.
Absolutely, just wonderful to see the reaction as he walked into the room. The doors opened, the cheer went up. Just so heartwarming.
You ever had a surprise birthday party for yourself?
I have actually.
Oh, lucky on you, eh?
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
It wasn't quite as big. I mean, there weren't as many.
Nice friends.
There weren't as many people
I wasn't
there
invited.
as. No, there were only sort of 8.
Only 8. I don't fit into the top 8. So that's nice, isn't it? Even though I spend every day standing.
I didn't choose the guest list. It was a surprise party.
Oh, I'll be having words. Anyway, this is Merry Christmas Britain on GB News. I hope you've been invited to someone's birthday party. Lots more coming up on today's show. We can hopefully reveal the names of those newly appointed Labour peers. There could be 30 of them. That's after the weather.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It's going to be an unsettled few days, and for the rest of the day, with a lot of traffic on the roads, we do have some rain to watch out for. That's clearing southeastwards associated with this cold front. Then, briefly, a fine interlude overnight, but the next weather front is appearing and it's going to turn increasingly windy by the start of Saturday. So a damp rush hour for the southeast corner. That does clear though, with some dry and clear weather overnight, for a time at least, before Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern and Western England as well as Wales turn wet and windy by dawn. That, of course, will keep temperatures from falling too far, but it's going to be a soggy start to the day for Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern and Western England as well as Wales. Gusty winds increasing in strength during Saturday as showers replace the rain during the morning, and that wind continues to ramp up into the afternoon. We're talking about 50 to 60 mile/hour wind gusts for the northern half of the UK, particularly over hills and coasts, and the risk for northwest Scotland of 75 mile/hour wind gusts later in the morning and early afternoon. For the southern half of the UK, it's going to be blustery with outbreaks of rain across much of England and Wales, but some brighter skies do eventually turn up into the afternoon with quite frequent showers. That is apart from the south coast where it stays damp throughout. It's mild in the south, but it's much colder further north as the winds change direction and bring the threat of some wintry showers as we start off Saturday night across Scotland, Northern Ireland, and those showers will be falling as snow above 100 or 200 metres or so. The start of Sunday also sees some wintry showers, but later in the day it's rain showers and it stays blustery, feeling cold on Sunday, milder by Christmas.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You could be joining the Great British Giveaway list of winners with your chance to grab a fantastic £50,000 in tax-free cash.
My name is Chris. And my name is Julie. And we won 25,000. I'd say don't hesitate, do it. If you're not in it, you've got no chance of winning it.
For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Now, our next guests have been working closely with celebrities and MPs to help clean up our planet.
Very important. Think Ocean was founded in 2021 with two main goals. One, educating the next generation to make sure that they know when they're growing up that naturally we have to take care of the planet, and cleaning pollution that's already in the environment.
Well, joining us now to tell us more is Think Ocean's founder, Hugo Valdez-Vera, and the co-founder, Nolene Mariappan. Really good to see you both this morning. So, Nolene, let's start with you. What is Think Ocean, and why did you want to start this back in 2021?
Yes, so Hugo had actually been working on the environment and climate action for quite a long time. When he moved to the UK, he realised that there was a growing problem with plastic pollution, and that more needed to be done because people weren't actually seeing the link between plastic, the impact on the environment, and climate change. So he founded the organisation, and I joined him with three goals really: education, looking at technology to scale solutions, and looking at how we develop more circular economy programs. So actually looking at reusing, recycling, actually creating local economies from what people would consider waste.
Hugo, just how bad is plastic pollution around the world, especially here in the UK?
Well, it is bad, but we don't know the extent of how bad it is. You know, this is not much interest from the bigger players or, some government for us to know every detail of the pollution. So if we know that is from 1 to 10 is 2, probably it's about 6.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Well, Merry Christmas, Britain. It's 1 o'clock on Friday, the 20th of December, the last Friday before Christmas. I'm Emily Carver.
And I'm Tom Harwood.
Well, two men have now been charged with actual bodily harm after a disturbance at Manchester Airport back in July. The Crown Prosecution Service have said no police officers will be charged over the incident. We'll have the latest with our Home Security Editor.
Labour heavyweight Peter Mandelson is now poised to become the UK's top diplomat in Washington, D.C., all ahead of a Trump presidency. But will the Prime Minister have questions to answer about an apparent relationship between Mandelson and Jeffrey Epstein? Well, we'll be taking a closer look.
We will indeed, and there is some fresh hope for MH370. Could one of the biggest mysteries of the last decade finally be solved? We're talking about the flight, of course. Today has revealed the search is to resume in a new stretch of the Indian Ocean. We'll have the very latest.
And later in the show, we're going to bring you an exclusive story of an adult nature, as an Uber driver is caught watching what appears to be pornography whilst driving the car. We're going to be speaking to the passenger who caught and filmed this shocking moment and bring you the exclusive footage.
Yes, we don't wish to shock you with this exclusive story, but it is definitely worth talking about. You're going to want to hear the details on this one. We've got the passenger coming into the studio to tell us exactly what happened. We've contacted Uber as well, but we'll reveal all in the sec after 2 o'clock.
Absolutely, it's worth sticking around for. But of course, many more issues on the show today. Particularly interestingly, this political appointment of Peter Mandelson to a position in Washington, D.C. Not since the 1970s has there been a political appointment for ambassador in Washington. It's always been a career diplomat, a civil servant, someone from the Foreign Office. Well, now it's a former cabinet minister, but also, interestingly, a former European commissioner.
I mean, would it be too much to ask to have an ambassador in Washington for our country who hadn't called the president-elect a white nationalist? I mean, is it so hard to find someone who hasn't personally insulted the man?
In fairness, he said he was close to a white nationalist.
Little off or something.
Yeah, there's some wiggle room there. I'm sure he'll be emphasising that wiggle room. But that's what Peter Mandelson's all about, isn't it? He's sort of a shapeshifter in terms of politics, and maybe that's what Keir Starmer is... actually, everyone can use their own words.
Chameleon is what you said before, wasn't it?
But maybe that's what Keir Starmer wants, because it's someone that can sort of, shape-shift it.
I'm sorry, I think looking at things, it does look like the United States. I did a bit of Donald Trump there, didn't I?
The accordion.
The United States does seem to potentially be going in a good direction. Do we want someone who really doesn't like the man? I don't know. gbnews.com/yoursay. Please do get in touch. We are going to be bringing you those 30 Labour peers that are going to be appointed. But that's after your headlines with Tatiana.
Emily, thank you, and good afternoon. At the top stories, Lord Mandelson is expected to be named as the UK's next ambassador to the US. Lord Mandelson, who served in the cabinets of Sir Tony Blair and Gordon Brown, is poised to be the UK's next top diplomat in Washington in a political appointment as Donald Trump returns to the White House. Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer believes the Labour veteran has the trade expertise and networking abilities to bring the UK and America closer together. Dame Karen Pierce, the current ambassador, will remain in the post until Trump is inaugurated on the 20th of January. 2 men in other news have been charged with assaults on police officers following an incident at Manchester Airport in July. 20-year-old Mohammed Amaz is charged with 2 offences of causing actual bodily harm, 1 charge of assaulting an emergency worker and 1 charge of common assault. And 25-year-old Mohammed Ahmad is charged with causing actual bodily harm. They'll both appear in court on the 16th of January. The Crown Prosecution Service said no police officers would be charged in relation to the incident. The IOPC says its investigation into the use of force by police on 6 people was nearing its completion. Elsewhere, the Prime Minister says council should get on with the job of fixing pothole-plagued roads. Sir Keir Starmer says damaged roads can risk lives and cost hundreds, if not thousands of pounds for car repairs. He made the comments as the Department of Transport announced how much each local authority in England will receive to maintain roads in the next financial year. The Treasury announced in the budget in October that total local road maintenance funding in 2025 and 2026 will be nearly £1.6 billion, representing a £500 million uplift compared with the previous 12 months. The increase is estimated to be enough to fix around 7 million potholes. Transport Secretary Heidi Alexander says it's important local communities get the best results.
We will be releasing 75% of this funding next year to start off with, and we withhold 25% to ensure that councils are reporting back to us on how they are using that money, because we know that some roads at the moment are like obstacle courses, aren't they? You've got huge craters in them, and so what we need to make sure is that those really big safety problems are being tackled first and foremost, but we want councils as well to think strategically about how they use this money in the best way, because it's really important that we get good value for money.
In other news, the Department of Health and Social Care are announcing a package of GP reforms to slash red tape, they say, and bring back the family doctor. The government consulting with the British Medical Association on measures including the largest boost to GP funding in years and reducing outdated targets to free up time. Measures also include additional investment and greater flexibility to employ doctors as the Health Secretary vows to reform general practice. Backed by the biggest boost in GP funding in years, an extra £889 million on top of the existing budget for general practice. The proposal would also ensure patients most in need see the same doctor at every GP appointment. Health and Social Care Minister Stephen Kinnock says the plans will deliver better outcomes for patients.
Package of £889 million of investment that we're bringing forward today is really going to help to fix that front door. But investment always has to come with reform. So the negotiations that we'll be launching with the BMA will be based on dusting all the bureaucracy and the red tape that they have to deal with. There'll be a patients' charter so patients know what they can expect from the practice that they're registered with. There's going to be a much better online access. And we're going to bring back the family doctor. We're going to incentivise surgeries to ensure that people are seeing the same doctor, because that's what gets much better outcomes for them.
Well, in other news, a 7-year-old girl has died and a teacher and 5 other students have been wounded in a knife attack in the Croatian capital. The incident took place at a primary school in Zagreb, according to the state news agency HINA. Police said the attack happened just before 10 o'clock this morning in the Preko neighbourhood. They described the attacker as a young male and said he'd been detained. Emergency crews, including paramedics and an air ambulance, rushed to Preko Elementary School as authorities were alerted to the incident. The teacher is said to have suffered life-threatening injuries and remains in hospital after undergoing surgery, according to the state broadcaster. And King Charles will reportedly continue his cancer treatment into next year. Buckingham Palace says his treatment has been moving in a positive direction, and as a managed condition, the treatment cycle will continue into 2025. The palace is said to be optimistic about the King's health as he continues his royal engagements in 2025. Further details of the King's condition have not been disclosed, and when announcing the diagnosis in February, the palace asked for privacy and only confirmed it is a form of cancer. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Tatiana Sanchez. More news from me in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Merry Christmas, Britain. It's 9 minutes past 1. Now, the man once dubbed the Prince of Darkness is coming out of the shadows.
Yes, Lord Mandelson, Peter Mandelson, is set to be appointed as the next ambassador of the United Kingdom to the United States. That's taking place after Donald Trump's inauguration on the 20th of January.
But is it the right fit? His appointment comes despite the Labour grandee once calling Donald Trump a bully and attacking his America First agenda, also suggesting he might be a white nationalist too, or at least close to.
Well, questions are also being asked about what's being described as a particularly close relationship between Lord Mandelson and the late paedophile Jeffrey Epstein.
OK, well, in the studio with us is GB News political editor Christopher Hurd. I think we've got a lot to get through, actually.
It's a big career. It's your big career with Peter Mandelson.
Yeah, I mean,
a lot of things.
Well, yes, but there's so much news today, isn't there? Peter Mandelson, who is he? Why has he got this job? And is it a good thing?
OK, former New Labour cabinet minister, held 2 roles, quit the government in different circumstances certainly under Tony Blair twice, brought back in by Gordon Brown in 2007, then became an EU Trade Commissioner, before that an EU Trade Commissioner, somebody who wasn't a big fan of Brexit. He is now a person who is the interface between our country and Donald Trump. How might that go? Well, I would argue that's not a bad result here, I think, for those who care about our special relationship with the United States. I think he's a politician. He can sort of shape shift to work out how he can get on side with Donald Trump in a way which I would say a civil servant wouldn't be able to do so. Yes, he's made remarks in the past, inappropriate ones about, or ill-judged ones, looking back now, about Donald Trump calling a danger to the world, a little short of a white nationalist, but to be fair to him, he's a peer who probably had no idea he'd be back in government. David Lammy, now the Foreign Secretary, I think an MP with with ambitions to be in the cabinet wouldn't have said those things, but maybe he's going to move on from that. You're smiling, aren't you, Emily?
Well, you know what I think. I just think it would be nice to have an ambassador who hadn't said such things.
Who is that person? If you
Well, I don't know. I don't have an idea. I'll put myself forward, right? I'll put myself forward. I've missed the boat. I've missed the boat.
All those listed, Cathy Ashton, a trade commissioner for the EU, didn't do that well, was rather patronised by most people, appointed by Gordon Brown back in the day, I think. I think he's been reaching out, this is Mandelson, reaching out towards Nigel Farage, saying talk to him, which is more than any senior Tory is saying, or senior Labour figure. He gets the value of Farage to this country. Farage is patronised by the elite here, but he knows that Trump is he's the way into Trump. They can use each other. Farage, for his part, he tells me this morning he's reserving judgment. We look forward to seeing what he thinks. We also don't know what Donald Trump thinks. We're watching Trump's X feed and also on Truth Social.
It's a really interesting appointment. Of course, Peter Mandelson's been around for donkey's years, helped rebrand the Labour Party under Neil Kinnock. MP for Hartlepool as well, where there are certain questions over whether or not he knew what mushy peas were and whether or not he confused that for guacamole.
That's an
That's
an invented story.
Is it? It's not true.
No,
Fake
I think
news,
someone
Tom.
else said it about him, but it became true in repetition.
It's one of those political truisms.
Things.
But there's something rather more serious here, and that is the question marks over Peter Mandelson's judgment, given he did stay at the home of Jeffrey Epstein. This was asked of Keir Starmer at a press conference in January. Let's take a look at that question.
Did a report this summer on a JP Morgan report which suggested that Peter Mandelson had stayed at the New York townhouse of Jeffrey Epstein in 2009 when he was de facto Deputy Prime Minister, and while the financier was imprisoned for soliciting prostitution from a minor. Do you think that Lord Mandelson, who is of course a close political ally of yours, has some questions to answer?
On Peter Mandelson, look, and I do try to give pretty full answers in these sessions, I don't know any more than you do, and therefore there's not really much I can add to what you already know, I'm afraid, and that's simply the state of the affairs.
Didn't like being asked about that, did he? Will he have to say more now? He's Prime Minister?
Well, or Peter Mandelson may want to talk more about that. He's putting his finances almost certainly into a blind trust. He's invested in all sorts of businesses. He had a company called Global Counsel. I think he sold the shares on that early this year, or some shares in that anyway. I mean, lots of questions to answer for him. He's now a public figure again. He must answer those questions, of course. So Keir Starmer might find himself asked those questions. There has been a run into this. We saw a phone call on Wednesday night between Sir Keir Starmer and Donald Trump. So, of course, he's briefed then. Before that, we had Morgan McSweeney, the Chief of Staff for Jonathan Powell, the National Security Advisor, meeting Team Trump quietly on December the 3rd. So, there's an attempt here, I think, at trying to find a middle ground between the European Union, which we are going to get close to next year, but also the Trump issue, the trade deal, tariffs with the US. I think if you look at the cast of thousands who could do this, I think Mandelson's towards the top of that tree. You don't have to agree with that, but I think I've looked at it quite closely. I know that viewers and listeners may not agree with this, but I'm asking them to look at the case for who else it might be.
But perhaps, perhaps we'll all be proven wrong.
I mean, Farage is an MP. He can't do it.
I'm not saying anything about Nigel Farage. I'm not saying Peter Mandelson. He's just had many a scandal himself, hasn't he?
But it's also bonkers to suggest that the Prime Minister, it might be in the country's interest to appoint Nigel Farage, but why would the Prime Minister who leads the Labour Party pick a political foe who leads a different party? I mean,
because they understand they need someone who'll get on with Donald.
And therefore, to hear Mandelson say, let's give Farage a chance and listen to him, that means something.
That's interesting, yes. That's grown up.
That's grown up. And in fact, by his account, Farage told us on Tuesday night on his programme I was presenting, he said he told Keir Starmer, I want to help. How can I help connect you? Because he is a patriot at the end of the day. Yes, he is a battle about ideas in this country, but he does want to get the best of Britain.
That was a cracking show, by the way.
Yes, it was.
Enjoyed it very much.
Thank you. Yes, enjoyed doing it. I should also, before we go, peerages.
Yes.
Apologies. Haven't happened yet. Not my fault. Blame the king or number 10. Not my fault.
We're never blaming the king.
No, not his fault. But it's not, they're going to happen at some point.
We've got you. Chagos Islands. Something's happened there.
There's been an update because it doesn't say much. It confirms that the UK and the Mauritius government are in talks about the future of the Chagos Islands. That's all it says, because there's been a big hoo-ha in the Commons. MPs feel they're not being told everything, and they're reading Mauritius Hansard and finding more about the future.
But this is fascinating, right? Because we were told that the treaty had been written but not signed.
Yes.
And now they're in negotiations, so the text of the treaty could be changed.
Yes.
But no one's seen the text of the treaty.
Well, the statement says, just very briefly, they are now in talks about finalising the treaty, as you say, not completed. Now, there's reports in Mauritius newspapers that they may want a 40-year lease, not a 100-year lease.
Right.
I could get even worse.
So if that's the case, and if that happens, I mean, it's very much hard to sell to America.
Yes.
We're selling it to America on basis of a 100-year lease to allow the US to use that. If it goes on to 40 years, that's a blink of an eye in world relations.
I think there are a few colds going around here. We've got you squeaking, you croaking. I've got a sneeze coming every now and again.
But we're here. We'll do our best for our viewers.
We soldier on, we soldier through. And Chris, do crash into the studio as soon as we see that peerage list. Brilliant stuff.
In other news, according to reports, King Charles's cancer treatment will have to continue into the new year after almost a year's battle with the disease.
Yes, Buckingham Palace sources added that the monarch's treatment has been moving in a positive direction, and there's a sense of optimism around his condition, as demonstrated by the King's desire to keep a busy schedule of public engagements.
OK, well, let's discuss this further with royal broadcaster Helena Chard. Helena, thank you very much. So what exactly do we know about what's going on with the King's health?
So, yes, as we know, the King's cancer treatment will continue into next year. I mean, as we know, he has had the year from hell. I think even Prince William describing his year as brutal, involving his wife and King Charles, but being very proud of them both. So he was diagnosed with cancer, obviously, in February and began treatment. They say moving in a positive direction, which is great. I mean, there is this great sense of optimism, and obviously, we could see him, he absolutely works with such gusto that we can see that you'd almost forget that he'd been diagnosed with cancer. So I think this is all very, very good. He's out and about with the people, you know, choirs, Christmassy, always filling his diary. So the fact that he's raring ahead, which is absolutely great. He was at Buckingham Palace yesterday hosting the Christmas event. He's around crowds today, and the community engagement, the power of community spirit. He hasn't shared his exact diagnosis, but obviously because he wants everyone to feel hope. He wants to give hope to everybody, every cancer sufferer. So we're not sure what type it is, but we're also told there are lots of different treatments for cancer. And it's a usual thing, really, for treatment to go on for quite a long time. So we shouldn't be surprised. We shouldn't be worried. It's just a way of managing his condition. But we do know that he wants kindness. You know, he enjoys the kindness given to him from the public. And the fact that he's updating us is great. Is really, really, really good. I know that next year he's going to be returning to a full programme of public duties, which is great. And it's going to be exciting. We know it lifts his spirits, and that's all a big positive thing. I think actually they've not looked happier despite a terrible year. I think they're looking a little bit more relaxed, and I think the public's kindness probably is part of that.
Well, Helena Chard, thank you so much for talking us through that. Let's hope it is that good news, that the positivity around the King does push through, because I know that positivity so often can actually really, really help with treatment as well. Helena, thanks.
Yeah, hopefully things will get a bit easier with the brother. Lots to be stressed about, I guess, but a new year very soon. This is Merry Christmas Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up. Should teachers be permitted to fine parents over the behaviour of those unruly children? Their unruly children. So teachers fine parents. Well, that's what the Tony Blair think tank thinks. Do we agree? We're having that debate after this.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Dora Carrington is not known to lots of people, and very few pieces are in public collections. So you have had a great deal of work to do to put this exhibition together?
Absolutely. It's been, next year, it will be 30 years since the last major exhibition of Carrington's work, which happened in 1995 at the Barbican Gallery. And I guess if people know Carrington's work, they might have seen the film that took place that year, that came out that year, starring Emma Thompson as Carrington and Jonathan Pryce as Lytton Strachey, who was her main kind of key relationship in her life. And that, in a way, dramatised a lot of those relationships. And so people will often know her life as much as her art. There's only 16 works in public collections, and so apart from chances such as the big billboard campaign you mentioned 10 years ago, there have been very few chances to actually see her work in the flesh. And so what this exhibition does is bring together around 80 works by Carrington and a few of her key contemporaries, providing a new generation really a chance to see and enjoy her work. She was one of the most remarkable of her generation at the Slade School of Art. She won several prizes for her drawing and her draftsmanship. And in the first room of the exhibition, we have some of the work, for example, a couple of female nudes that she painted when she was at the Slade, and they really are kind of quite outstanding.
One of the things that's been said is that in her landscapes, she's sometimes painting the human body as well as the landscape. Is that something that occurred to you? Can you stand up that?
Yes, I mean, one of her most famous paintings we have of Spain has. It's very much like you could liken it to the female form. You know, the kind of the
delicately put.
Yes.
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Merry Christmas, Britain. It's 23 minutes past 1. I was just listening to Tom tell me all about the House majority over in the United States. We were discussing whether Donald Trump is actually going to be good for the United States or not.
Well,
apparently it's very complicated.
Well, not many people realise that actually the Republicans lost seats in the House at the election, even though they won the Senate, won the presidency. The House majority is very thin, very slim, so it might be hard to pass legislation. Anyway, that's a completely different topic to what we're talking about now.
Very interesting, though. Anyway, should you be fined for your children's behaviour at school, if they're badly behaved, that is?
Well, the think tank led by former Prime Minister Tony Blair says ministers should give teachers powers to fine parents if they don't engage with the child's school over classroom discipline.
They've also suggested teachers should be able to escalate cases to the police, NHS and social services. So also, you know, you could get a parent prosecuted over their own child's unruly behaviour.
Well, let's debate this now. Joining us is teacher and broadcaster Bobby Seagull, who thinks that he agrees with the think tank, or even agrees without that squeak, and the chair of the Campaign for Real Education, Chris McGovern, who disagrees. Bobby, we're going to start with you. Why should teachers be able to fine parents?
So I think there's a clear correlation between better standards of behaviour in the classroom and ultimately exam results, for example, GCSEs, because pupils, ultimately, they struggle to learn if they're not in a safe environment. And I think the rationale behind this is that when teachers, us educators, we are worried and have concerns about a young person's behaviour, we often try to engage with parents or guardians. But when parents and guardians refuse to engage, ultimately, it's a safeguarding issue because it shows that the parents aren't taking their responsibility seriously. And what I'll say is that there is the status quo for this. We know that schools do fine parents that refuse to send their children into school. So it's not completely out of the sort of ballpark idea. And ultimately, this will mean that children will feel safer in the school environment.
Let's turn to Chris McGovern, because Chris, I thought that maybe you'd be supportive of this as an idea, because for too long parents have got away with sending their very naughty and disruptive kids into school.
Well, you may think that, but actually I've also got a brain and I have some common sense, so it won't work. And that's the problem. I'll tell you a little story, Emily. When I started teaching in a comprehensive school of 2,000 in Yorkshire, I used to teach a pretty difficult group of children on a Friday afternoon. And I said to this one boy one Friday afternoon, "What are you doing over the weekend?" And he said he was going to watch Leeds United play. On the Monday, I asked him, "How did you get on at the Leeds United match?" He said, "Well, I got arrested because I broke a bottle over, I think it was a Coventry City supporter's head."
Oh.
He went to court. It was banned from football for a year. 6 months later, same situation. I said, "Michael, what are you doing over the weekend?" He said, "I'm going to watch Leeds." I said, "No, you can't go, Michael, because you've been banned." He said, "No, it's okay." He said, "I'm going with my dad." On the Monday, I said, "Michael, how did you get on at the football with your dad? Did you get arrested?" He said, "No, I didn't get arrested, but my dad got arrested." So maybe Michael should be finding his father. That's the sort of reality out there. We need a solution to the problem of parents and of children. And of course, we need a safe environment. If you teach children well, if you teach them on relevant courses, they're going to behave better. You need good teachers teaching relevant subjects. So you need children in secondary school, particularly, if they're not academic, having vocational courses. There are ways forward. But look, it's a very silly idea from Tony Blair's think tank.
OK, let's throw that back to Bobby. Is this a distraction from what really needs to happen in our education system?
So what I would say is that behaviour is a real, genuine concern that impacts teachers day to day and those who are considering leaving the profession, or even those that are considering entering the profession. And actually, this Tony Blair Institute report didn't just survey like 100 people, it surveyed 70,000 plus pupils and 13,000 staff. So they've gathered the views of lots of people that are being educated and the educators. And they found that 2/3 of lessons are regularly disrupted by poor behaviour. There's not like happens every so often. It's something that happens in 2/3 of all teachers' lessons. And the way it impacts young people is that they found that nearly 2 in 5 pupils said that they don't feel safe in the classroom environment. And that's partly because of the behaviour of badly behaved students. And I think that obviously this is an extreme measure. It's not a light thing. And again, it's not like if a child suddenly drops a book or they shouldn't really throw stuff in the bin and they miss. I'm like, okay, we're going to find your parents. This is where we'll have conversations with the parents. And if things don't turn around, then it should be a measure, because I feel as if teachers...
Bobby, does I'm going to send you to the head teacher's office just not work anymore? Are children just getting naughtier? They don't care for any boundaries? I mean, does that sort of thing just not work?
I think, Emily, you're sort of hitting the nail on the head there. I feel as, I've been a teacher now for a decade, and I think that there's been a shift in the balance of authority between teachers and pupils. And again, not that we should go back to the Victorian corporate, and no one will ever advocate that. But the 80s and 90s, teachers, again, when I was a child in school, teachers who felt like, they were the source of authority in the class. And I definitely think there should be more balance towards young people. But the reality is now, young people, I feel as though have all the balance of power in classes. Sometimes there are schools where children do naughty things, get sent out, and then sent back into the class, totally undermining the teacher. So I feel as if we need something to redress the balance.
Chris, is there a real issue here that with some naughty children, they only see teachers for a small proportion of the day, the rest of the day they might be being backed up by very naughty parents? It might be the case that their troublesome and disruptive behaviour is endorsed by their parents. That cycle needs to be broken in those cases.
You're right. I took over a failing school a few years ago, and of course the children came to the school as a point of refuge, and we often have parents fighting at the gates. But don't get the idea, Tom, that there's a lack of authority in school, a lot of control. Someone is always in control of the school. It just helps if it's the head teacher. At the moment, too frequently, it isn't the head teacher. Look, the first...
Who is it? The children?
They aren't really big problems. You want to starting point, we apply the same rules we apply to alcohol to smartphones. Then you wouldn't have anybody bullying with smartphones. Straight away, you reduce the problem massively. There are simple solutions. You want good teaching, and you have to have control, and teachers need to be backed up by the senior staff. You want to make a simple start. Things have deteriorated since COVID. smartphones, ban them. I don't mean curtail them, ban them for under 18s. Apply to them the same laws we apply to alcohol and smoke. It's a simple stuff. It's a simple solution. We've got to get back control. So I agree with our colleague here. Of course, we've got to get back control. We've got to protect the majority. We need to have more exclusion units which help children who can't cope with the mainstream.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard so many teachers complaining about how it's so difficult to control children, and they come in and the parents don't back them up at all, don't back up the teachers. They take the child's side. It's just awful. Chris McGovern and Bobby Seagull, thank you very much indeed for that debate. It was fantastic. Yeah, I mean, it must be so difficult if you go into a classroom and essentially teachers get bullied.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just get bullied.
You know how we often have this conversation about crime in the UK?
Yeah.
How such a small proportion of criminals do such a large proportion of the crime. I think it's also true of schools. A small proportion of the kids disrupt everything for everyone else.
Ruin it.
It only takes one or two disruptive pupils at the back of the classroom, and the people at the front with their heads down trying to learn have their education ruined. I mean, I think the point about exclusions is really important. I mean, the most disruptive kids just shouldn't be in those schools.
Yeah, but people say, oh, then they're going to live a life of, you know, deprivation and destruction.
Well, they might benefit from the specialist exclusion units way more than they would in a class of 30 kids.
It reminds me of a story. I went to a school where there wasn't much naughtiness at all, an all-girls school. And I remember a teacher telling my mum at a parents' evening, today, you won't believe this, I had to ask the girls to be quiet twice. And my mum, who was a teacher, was thinking, oh, my God, I wish that were the case in my classroom.
Yeah. No, I had
to tell the girls to be quiet twice.
OK, that was not the case at my school. I got reprimanded quite a bit for
I can imagine
habit of shouting.
I bet for being a smart ass.
Sometimes.
No, we love you. We love you. This is Merry Christmas Britain on GB News. I hope everyone watching was well behaved at school on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show, including the Prime Minister's pothole pledge. Will we finally overcome the bump in the road, or is this perhaps a distraction from some of the bigger issues facing our country? That's to come after the headlines.
Good afternoon. The top stories this hour. Lord Mandelson is expected to be named as the UK's next ambassador to the US. Lord Mandelson, who served in the cabinets of Sir Tony Blair and Gordon Brown, is poised to be the UK's next top diplomat in Washington in a political appointment as Donald Trump returns to the White House. Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer believes the Labour veteran has the trade expertise and networking abilities to bring the UK and America closer together. Dame Karen Pierce, the current ambassador, will remain in the post until Trump is inaugurated on the 20th of January. 2 men have been charged with assaults on police officers following an incident at Manchester Airport in July. 20-year-old Mohammed Amaz is charged with 2 offences of causing actual bodily harm, 1 charge of assaulting an emergency worker and 1 charge of common assault. And 25-year-old Mohammed Ahmad is charged with causing actual bodily harm. They'll both appear in court on the 16th of January. The Crown Prosecution Service said no police officers would be charged in relation to the incident. The IOPC has said its investigation into the use of force by police on 6 people was nearing its completion. And the Prime Minister says council should get on with the job of fixing pothole-plagued roads. Sir Keir Starmer says damaged roads can risk lives and cost hundreds, if not thousands of pounds for car repairs. He made the comments as the Department for Transport announced how much each local authority in England will receive to maintain roads in the next financial year. The Treasury announced in the budget in October that total local road maintenance funding for next year and 2026 will be nearly £1.6 billion, representing a £500 million uplift compared with the previous 12 months. The increase is estimated to be enough to fix around 7 million potholes. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. More from me in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. If you've got travel plans over the next few days, it's worth staying in touch with the weather forecast because it is turning unsettled. Rain moving east today, turning increasingly blustery and increasingly mild as westerlies move in across the country. So for today, a cold front is sinking southeastwards. That's bringing a spell of persistent rain for northern and western England, as well as Wales. Some heavy bursts with that rain and gusty winds. Drier to the east of that, although increasingly cloudy, with a few spots of rain by the end of the afternoon in East Anglia and the southeast. Showers replacing the rain for Scotland and Northern Ireland as we end the afternoon, and feeling fresher here, but milder to the south, 10 to 12 Celsius. A damp evening then as we go through Friday, and it's going to be particularly damp across the Midlands and southern England. But for Scotland and Northern Ireland, it's a case of clear spells and showers, with the wind tending to ease. So actually conditions improving for the north and west of the country during the evening rush, but it's damp across East Anglia and the southeast at 6 p.m. with some heavy bursts of rain along with blustery breeze. The rain does clear, and then a brief spell of fine weather overnight with some clear spells and lighter winds. However, it doesn't last long. Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern and Western England, as well as Wales, turn increasingly unsettled once again by dawn on Saturday. As that rain and wind move in, it's going to be a mild start to the weekend, but an unsettled start. Initially, a band of rain crosses the country, a lot of cloud cover associated with that. Then, brighter skies, but also blustery showers replace it for the north and west, and it's going to turn increasingly windy. The strongest winds will be in the north, 50 to 60 miles an hour, especially the northwest of Scotland, with the risk of 75-mile-per-hour wind gusts.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon. Hello, I'm Jules Buckley. Issues in Scotland to the west of Perth, the northbound M90, Craig End at junction 10. Slow going up to the Broxton roundabout. That's junction 12, the A9 turn-off. Lane 1 of 2 is blocked. There's a breakdown there and it's causing queues. M62 westbound, Castleford to Rothwell. So that's junction 31 to 30 in West Yorkshire. A vehicle there undergoing a tide change. Pretty slow past the scene. A lane closure in place. Now the clockwise M25, the traffic all being held just before Maple Cross at junction 17. A couple of cars and a van have had a collision there. Is queuing back to junction 16 for the M40, and the southbound M5 in Devon near to Oakhampton at junction 31. 2 lanes combed off, queuing back to Exeter at junction 30. There's a lorry fire being dealt with there, and that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Merry Christmas, Britain. It's 38 minutes past 1. Now, the Prime Minister has pledged £1.6 billion, that's billion with a B, to help repair 7 million potholes across the UK.
That's for spelling that out for us so nicely.
Well, it's a big, big number.
It is, and we do sometimes get confused between our billions and our millions. Never our trillions, though. Anyway, Sir Keir hopes the major boost will allow motorists to save on damage costs and enable quicker and safer journeys for drivers.
Well, who better to speak to on this issue about potholes than Mr. Pothole himself, Mark Morrell. Mark, Mr. Pothole, thanks so much for joining us here on Good Afternoon Britain. Merry Christmas, Britain, as we're calling it this week. Firstly, do you welcome the government's announcement today?
Well, it's definitely no Christmas present from Keir Starmer, considering there's a £16.3 billion backlog of carriageway works in England and Wales. And this number of £1.6 billion, yes, a lot of money to me and you, but back on 2020, 2021, the Conservative government put in £1.78 billion, including £500 million for potholes. And the year after, the network got worse by £2.2 billion. Unless the government invest £3 billion index-linked year on year into a national resurfacing programme, we're not going to see any change. In fact, it's going to get worse. In 15 years' time, 51% of our roads will be structurally unsound.
Do you think it's just not very trendy to spend huge amounts of money on fixing roads? You know, there's a push for more people to not use their cars, for example. You know, might have money going into the railways, you might have money going into electric vehicle infrastructure, but people forget the solitary road.
Yeah, I mean, they're essential for our economy. I mean, there was an economics report earlier this year that said that badly maintained roads was costing the UK economy £14.4 billion a year. So while we shouldn't be. Why shouldn't we be investing £3 billion index linked over that period? We could halve that in 10 years and eradicate it in 20 years and take a long-term view like other countries in investment. And don't forget, cyclists get killed or seriously injured as a result of potholes, and motorcyclists the same.
No, I have to say, one of the nastiest times I came off my bike when I was growing up was whacking into a pothole, head over first on the handlebars, teeth through the lip. Really nasty. And they are an absolute menace.
So it's not just for cars, then?
But hang on, why is it so expensive to simply repair a pothole? I mean, it's not the most technologically difficult thing in the world, is it?
No, I mean, but we see poor quality, cheap repairs, and your viewers and listeners would have experienced that firsthand. They don't last. Even if you do a decent repair that might cost a couple of £100, if the road around it's unsound, a bit like if you go to a dentist and have a filling, they have to clean the area around where they're going to put the filling back to good tooth. Otherwise, it's not going to stay in. Same with a pothole. But our roads have now got to the point where repairing them is a waste of time and waste of money. You need to resurface the roads, and unless you do so, going forward, it's going to be an ongoing massive issue for the country and more economic interest and stacking up a bill that's going to have to be paid at some time.
I've heard, it does seem like we're playing catch-up constantly on this, but I've heard some people blame our pothole situation on the weather, on our climate, because, you know, it gets cold for a couple of days and then it gets mild again. It gets cold and then it gets mild, and it gets cold and then it gets mild, which apparently wreaks havoc on the road surface. Is that true?
Freeze-thaw weathering.
Yeah. Whereas it doesn't just stay cold for months, you know?
Only if the road's in poor condition in the first place. If it's in good condition, it doesn't affect it. Look at places like Scandinavia, where they get swings of dramatic temperatures, far more than we do. It's just an excuse again. Blame the weather, blame this, blame that. If you haven't got the cracks in the tarmac in the first place, the water can't penetrate in it. And, you know, sunlight breaks down the oil, so breaks down the tarmac, and an average wearing surface lasts about 20 years. Most of our roads are 70 years plus in terms of their age. It doesn't take a lot of working out of why the network's failing, and failing at an alarming rate.
Now, Mark, for those that don't know you, Mr. Pothole, how did you become Mr. Pothole?
Well, that was the media that called me that. I never called myself that. I started with a small Facebook group locally because my daughter complained about a pothole on a road which was dangerous. I reported to the council, nothing happened, threatened them, and I ended up reporting it to the police because I could see someone having an incident there. Started a small Facebook group. Next thing, I've got hundreds of followers. Next thing, I'm doing documentaries on every breakfast show. Set up National Pothole Day, and I've had £5 million worth of resurfacing work carried out. I've issued legal notices on authorities to get roads done, over 10,000 potholes repaired. My evidence is included in a Transport Select Committee inquiry. I think I've done everything I can to labour this point, but none of the politicians are listening. And they're very good when in opposition. As soon as they get in power, it goes very quiet and they can't deal with the problem.
Sometimes life, you know, takes you on these very interesting journeys. And now every time we think of potholes, every time we're discussing this, we think of you first.
Yes,
who do we need to get up?
Mr. Pothole. But thank you so much, Mark, for coming on and talking us through this issue. It's clear that the government have a huge job on their hands. Thanks for joining us.
It's not good enough, is it, really, that we've just got all of these rubbish roads?
Rubbish roads.
Rubbish roads. Anyway, if you're in search of some winter sun, perhaps I am, here is the forecast for some of the top European holiday destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hi there. If you're heading off looking for the sun ahead of Christmas, it's largely fine in Spain but unsettled in Greece, whilst the winds feature highly on Saturday in the Canary Islands with some showers moving through here. Some wet weather for Gibraltar, but for much of Spain, Balearics in particular, lighter winds and some sunshine. A breeze blowing through Italy and into Greece with some heavy rain here, and it stays showery in Greece throughout the weekend and into next week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Well, this is Merry Christmas Britain on GB News, and there's plenty more coming up on today's programme. Will you be driving home for Christmas across, perhaps, hundreds of potholes? Well, we're sorry to say that you could be in a nightmare journey, and that's not just because of the potholes. We'll be speaking to the travel expert, the guru, Simon Calder, after this.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
Locals in Abingdon in Oxfordshire have signed a petition to keep the name of their local pub, and it's called The Midget. Now, this comes after a university lecturer led an 11-month campaign to change the name of the pub, and the owners, Green King, have caved in. But locals are fighting back, and GB News spoke to one resident, Leanne Thompson, for her thoughts earlier today.
I'm not feeling great about it, to be honest. You know, it's a pub that's been here for a very long time. It's called The Midget after a MG car, and they're changing it to the Roaring Raindrop, which a lot of people are not happy about. We know why they're changing it, but a lady apparently came in who was very upset at the offensive term for the name midget. But nobody here sees it as an offensive term. We don't. You don't see the midget and feel any kind of offence towards that. It's named after a car. If she was to actually come, she might actually know more about it. But apparently, she's not even been into the pub. She's just heard about it and broadcasted on social media that she wanted the name changed because it's offensive. Which, as locals, don't feel that way. It's the midget. It will always be the midget. And if you look, it's even still on Midget Close. So I don't know if they're going to change it to the Roaring Raindrop Close.
Do you know, you should walk into the Midget now and go, do you serve shorts? And just keep going on the joke. It's named after a car, the MG Midget, that was manufactured in the town of Abingdon for a while. The car was released in 1961. The boozer was built in 1974, giving huge pride to the area. It wasn't named after midgets, you know, the Snow White and the 7 vertically challenged individuals variety. It's named after a car.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
OK, Merry Christmas, Britain. It's 1:48. Are you driving home for Christmas, Tom?
Yes, I will be.
Yeah? In the back of the car?
I'll be in the back of the car. My sister will be driving me. Actually, I'm going to be standing in for Camilla Tominey on Sunday, doing her show. And it's straight from that show. My sister will be waiting in the car outside, and I have to hop in and go off on family duties.
But at least you're not... family duties.
Family duties.
Festivities.
Sorry, delighted to be, yes.
But yes, Christmas is actually quite a bit about duty, isn't it? I mean, not everyone is delighted to see some members of their family. I, of course, am. I love my family. But, you know, sometimes you've got a pain in the bum aunt or, you know...
I don't think there's a single member of the family
that you don't like very much.
No, I don't think there's a single member of my family that I don't want to see. But I think sometimes the whole festivities...
I don't think you'd say it on national television, even if there were. No. I hope not. Anyway, that wouldn't be very nice.
I don't think anyone's family relations are that bad. I don't think mine are, certainly.
But you're not going to be driving today, because apparently today is one of the worst days yet, because Friday before Christmas, you could be in for a nightmare journey. So let's find out more from our travel correspondent, from travel correspondent at The Independent, Simon Calder. Simon, where are you and how bad is it today and how bad is it going to be over the weekend?
Oh, look, I am in beautiful Vienna. I managed to get out just before the rush started. But of course, I'm keeping absolutely in touch with what is happening over in the UK. And it is Frantic Friday, to be followed by Snarl Up Saturday. And then, well, Sunday won't be too bad, but Manic Monday is going to be pretty awful as well. The motoring organisations are just saying it's going to be horrible. And if you're thinking of catching the train, well, good luck with that, because we've got festive engineering works which will kind of merge seamlessly with the resumption of rail strikes. So you might be thinking, well, I'll get the ferry, not from Holyhead to Dublin, you won't, until the 15th of January. And if you're flying, well, things are going to be busier today than any other day of the winter at Heathrow, at Luton, at Newcastle and at Glasgow airports. Sunday is going to be the big day at most of the other ones, Stansted, Manchester, Gatwick and so on. But wherever you are, my goodness me, everyone is so invested emotionally and financially in their journeys. And that's why you've really just got to hope for the best, be prepared for delays and disruption. And crucially, on those drives, please just stay in, watch GB News all afternoon, because today is going to be the busiest day in terms of the roads, according to the RAC and the AA. And that's because you've got all the people with their normal commutes, and they are going to get all tangled up with people who are beginning the great getaway this afternoon, early evening. So 7 o'clock is the earliest to start going anywhere. And if you want to beat the traffic all the way through, either get up good and early or wait till tea time before you set off, and that will see you happily through the festive season, I hope.
Well, there you go. That's some solid advice there. You don't want to be mixed up with all of the commuting traffic. But my goodness me, one of the things that I think is most frustrating to many people across the festive period, because it happens every single year, and that's they choose to do the most laborious rail upgrades at the time when most families are trying to see one another. And it seems to happen every single year that all the trains are cancelled. What's going on?
Well, OK, what's going on is that unlike the roads, where the highways agencies say, right, we're taking out all we can of the engineering works, exactly as you say, Tom, we're going to start all that engineering work. That is because, to be fair on the rail companies and Network Rail who prescribe all this, they say actually generally fewer people do travel at Christmas. But my goodness me, they are really going for it this Christmas. So from tomorrow, you will not be able to travel from Sheffield, Derby, Nottingham or Leicester to London St Pancras International until the 30th of December. That's being closed just north of St Pancras Station. On top of that, well, everything closes down around tea time on Christmas Eve. Watch out for last trains there. Then everything's closed on the railways on Christmas Day. A few services on Boxing Day. You're looking at the Gatwick line from London Victoria, Stansted Airport, there'll be trains going there. And then around Merseyside, lots going on there. But 27th of December, when you think, oh, thank goodness for that, everything's going to open up again. Well, no, it isn't. Not at Britain's two busiest railway stations. So London Liverpool Street, hub for Essex. Hub for,
and quickly, Simon, what's the other one? We're running out of time.
London Paddington.
Paddington and
Simon Corder, thank you very much for bringing us that from beautiful Vienna. Now, up next, we're going to be bringing you exclusive footage of an adult nature in which an Uber driver is caught watching what appears to be pornographic material whilst driving a passenger. Is not one to miss. That's after the weather.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It's going to be an unsettled few days, and for the rest of today, with a lot of traffic on the roads, we do have some rain to watch out for. That's clearing southeastwards associated with this cold front. Then, briefly, a fine interlude overnight, but the next weather front is appearing and it's going to turn increasingly windy by the start of Saturday. So a damp rush hour for the southeast corner. That does clear, though, with some dry and clear weather overnight, for a time at least, before Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern and Western England, as well as Wales, turn wet and windy by dawn. That, of course, will keep temperatures from falling too far, but it's going to be a soggy start to the day for Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern and Western England, as well as Wales. Gusty winds increasing in strength during Saturday as showers replace the rain during the morning, and that wind continues to ramp up into the afternoon. We're talking about 50 to 60 mile-per-hour wind gusts for the northern half of the UK, particularly over hills and coasts, and the risk for northwest Scotland of 75 mile-per-hour wind gusts later in the morning and early afternoon. For the southern half of the UK, it's going to be blustery with outbreaks of rain across much of England and Wales, but brighter skies do eventually turn up into the afternoon with quite frequent showers. That is apart from the south coast where it stays damp throughout. It's mild in the south, but it's much colder further north as the winds change direction and bring the threat of some wintry showers as we start off Saturday night across Scotland, Northern Ireland, and those showers will be falling as snow above 100 or 200 metres or so. The start of Sunday also sees some wintry showers, but later in the day it's rain showers and it stays blustery, feeling cold on Sunday, milder by Christmas.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the biggest, greatest Great British giveaway so far, with your chance to win a spectacular £50,000 in tax-free cash. 2025 could be amazing, with plenty of treats, holidays and fun on the horizon. How would you enjoy that cash? £50,000 will make someone our biggest ever winner. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
What do you think?
Morning. I think we have failed young drivers as a society, and we need to train them better and train them earlier. I think that the idea of stopping them carrying passengers for 6 months is a good idea, because you've got peer pressure within a car. So yes, but I think graduated licenses are really difficult. You've got what we call the 3 E's, which is education, educating kids to drive earlier, and engineering, which is making roads better and safer, and then comes enforcement at the end of it. So I think we're failing in these two first ones, the education and the enforcement. I put my kids, all 3 of them, through a thing called Young Driver, which allows under 17s to drive on private land with ADI instructors and learn the craft of driving and all the below the dashboard stuff and hazard awareness long before they try and do this very compressed period of time to learn about driving. I think we're failing them. So I want to see it in schools, and I want to see them being taught much, much earlier.
Nobody's actually pointing the finger of blame, I think, at the young driver, but maybe young drivers don't understand how different it is. You feel you can drive, you've passed your test, and then a load of your friends get in the back, and suddenly the mood is different, the pressure on you as a driver is very different, showing off, just larking around and having a great time. Aisha, how do you feel about the fact that clearly young drivers do need to be protected almost from themselves, don't they?
Well, I do agree with some of what Quentin has just said, especially about starting early, and especially about getting young people used to the dangers of being on the road.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Merry Christmas, Britain. It's 2 o'clock on Friday, the 20th of December. I'm Tom Harwood.
And I'm Emily Carver.
Labour heavyweight Peter Mandelson is poised to become the UK's top diplomat in Washington, all ahead of a Trump presidency. But will the Prime Minister have questions to answer about an apparent relationship between Mandelson and Jeffrey Epstein?
And there's fresh hope for flight MH370. Could one of the biggest mysteries of the last decade finally be solved? Today it's revealed the search is beginning again in a new stretch of the Indian Ocean. We'll bring you the latest.
And in just a few moments, we'll bring you our exclusive story of a slightly adult nature as an Uber driver is caught watching what appears to be pornography whilst driving. We're going to speak to the very passenger who caught the shocking moment and bring you the exclusive footage.
Right, OK, so yes, the government wants us to be talking about potholes, but there's lots of other things on the agenda too. Do you think the whole pothole announcement right before Christmas is intended to distract from perhaps the bigger issues like pensioners and waspy women and the economy flatlining and all of that?
There is no doubt that Manic Friday, or whatever it's called,
Black Eye Friday, apparently, according to one of our viewers.
Oh,
not very nice, is it?
No, but this day of travel chaos. It's actually a very good comms strategy.
It's quite smart, actually, for
This is perhaps the smartest bit of communications that we've got from Downing Street so far in the entire 6 months that they've been in office. It's moved the conversation on. And everyone hates potholes. I remember at the Vote Leave campaign, one of the most successful leaflets was two pictures, one of a gleaming white bridge and above one of a pothole in a road. And at the top of the leaflet said, there are X 100,000 potholes in Britain. Meanwhile, your money is building bridges like this in Greece. And that was one of the early leaflets.
But I wonder if they brought this announcement forward a little, because we saw the WhatsApps that have been leaked from